We all know Terraria's history. A leak, a premature release, an overnight success and 35 million copy milestone hit just last year. It is great and all, but what about the other projects? What about the games which seemingly just got abandoned by Relogic and the companies around them? Late scheduling, unmet expectations, and inevitably a failed spin-off. Terraria Otherworld was a project with a huge potential. Announced in 2015, it excited pretty much everybody who has been in love with the well-known regular Terraria. The team was working on both regular and Underworld versions of the game at the same time. However, a couple of small videos later on Relogic's YouTube channel, after just 3 years of development, Relogic announced that the project has been terminated and no further work will be done. They came to such a conclusion simply because the game isn't what they wanted it to be, and the vision they had in mind won't be reached in decent time as they are well behind their schedule. The community was upset for completely obvious reasons. A couple years later, being well aware of this, in 2020 Relogic agreed to release the game's source if 100,000 people would sign a petition and he'd receive $15. Some people took it really seriously. A petition was made and reached its goal in January 17th, 2022. As for today, all that remains is a few clips of the gameplay released by Relogic, otherworldly soundtrack added to regular Terraria after the project closed, and a petition which, even though reached its signing count, hasn't influenced anything so far and probably won't either anytime soon. An unsuccessful launch, unsolved issues, and the beginning of end. With very little funding, a company Quadro Delta released Pixel Piracy on April 23, 2015. The game was praised for its potential in early access but had a considerable amount of issues which needed fixing. The developers felt like the game is really incomplete and owed the community something better. With Relogic providing additional support, balance, tweak and opinion shares, they added thousands of changes into the game and provided all Pixel Piracy owners the enhanced version of the game. But it wasn't enough. Even though Enhanced Edition was a message to the community felt like no progress is being made in the game's development. Bugs which don't let the player finish the game are still very much an issue, AI feels unresponsive and have no sense of surroundings when boarded on bigger ships, and many items didn't even work as intended. The game was clearly not finished. It had potential, but the developers ignored many of the main issues and instead moved on to another game project funded by Relogic, and thus the game was abandoned. After a 6-year-long silence, the already dead and forgotten Pixel Piracy received a small, 3-line-long update and few posts on their official Twitter account. Is this a try to bring the project back to light and finally fix the issues after all what happened? Only time will tell. Failure, lies, and bankruptcy. Pixel Privateers were announced in 2016 when the company Quadro Delta announced their combined efforts with Relogic in creating another game. After its release, the game was loved by many, but it was by no means a huge success. This rather intriguing looking side-scrolling real-time strategy game had many flaws, like depth and replayability issues, as the gameplay doesn't really bring you anywhere. Balancing of races and weapons feels off quite a lot. The sheer amount of new items is overwhelming, forcing the players to stay in inventory menus and screens for a very long time. The game also was filled with bugs. Many of these issues were promised to be fixed. However, after only 3 updates, Quadro Delta went bankrupt in 2017. The little and underwhelming sales of Pixel Privateers, as well as accusations of the executive producer from Quadro Delta, Alexander Poisky, working in secret and selling generated Steam keys, took its toll. Nowadays, many of the social media profiles from Quadro Delta are deleted, and apart from an explanation about Poisky's abuse and caused money losses of the ex-CEO of Quadro Delta, Vitaly Kirpu, no further messages were pushed forward to the community. The history of Pixel Piracy has repeated itself. A game with so much potential was left and got completely abandoned. And here we are today, with Terraria, a game which has withstood the test of time and still is being updated 11 years later. Just recently in April 2022, Terraria sold over 44 million copies and is still enjoyed by thousands on 17 different platforms. While other projects never saw light or just lived for a couple of years, Relogic's developed Terraria was, and still is, a huge success.